By heading northeast from the Grizzly Diner, we find a radio tower. We also find 2 Wastelanders fleeing from a wounded Deathclaw. Keep in mind, this is a random encounter, so you might not get the same if you go there as well. The 2 Wastelanders fled downhill where they told me,
"That thing would have killed us all without your help. Thanks. Listen, you may as well take this map. That's where we were headed, but that Deathclaw cured me of my itch for Wasteland adventure."
Now I had already received this location and the false promise of treasure from a different Wastelander just outside of Recopolis, and I must say, I was disappointed with those results. How much, I hear you ask? That much. With the encounter over, I headed back up the hill to the radio tower. Tower KXB811 to be exact. Through the gate, I flicked a switch and the signal Oscar Zulu began to play. It's a little choppy at this distance, but it will become clearer the closer we get to the source. While I head over to the location, let's listen to a version I downloaded.
If anyone can hear this, this is Bob Anderstein. The family and I have taken refuge in a drainage chamber not too far from a radio relay tower outside of DC. My boy is very sick and needs medical assistance. Please help if you can. We're listening for your response on 3950 kilohertz.
Now Bob Anderstein, the father, moved his wife and child into a drainage chamber. This drainage chamber. Inside, the signal is pretty clear, and at the bottom of the chamber we can head through a closed door to find the source of the signal. The ham radio can be switched off, removing the signal from our Pip-Boy. Under the desk are 3 bottles of purified water, and on top are 2 books, one pre-war, the other a DC Journal of Internal Medicine, also Mentats. Across from this room is another just like it. Lying on the ground are the remains of Mr. and Mrs. Anderstein. Around them are children's toys and food and medicine that haven't yet been consumed. On the top bunk is an ammunition box, and just beside it, a personal footlocker that, despite being locked, is completely empty. Strange, I know. But that is nothing when you think about the bodies. Bob brought with him at least 2 other people. His family may have been bigger, but he specifically mentioned his wife and his son, who was very sick at the time. The boy's body is nowhere to be seen. There's blood on the lower cot, and the positioning of the 2 parents is unnatural. It looks as if they were positioned this way. By who, I hear you ask? Well, that is something we can try to figure out. But before going any further with this story, we have to introduce another. Back outside, to the southeast of the drainage chamber, is a small group of structures. A water tower, grain silo, burnt out home, and other smaller structures such as the outhouse, swing set, and water pumping windmill. All of this is abandoned. But inside we find a functioning terminal. The terminal consists of 9 entries from various individuals who once called the farm home. They read, Edgar, I finally got everyone to agree to let me set up some generators for power. I can understand their nerves, considering what technology did to us all, but not making use of every resource is wasteful, and a sure path to hell in this situation. Coming out into the light has done wonders for everyone, but we can all get a little stir crazy, even out here. I'm setting this thing up for everyone to use. Rochelle, we set up an irrigation system. Thank God for Miles's experience on the farm. I never would have thought of this on my own, but what a great idea. I really thought this ground was useless, but the stuff he had us plant in the dirt we dug up is actually sprouting, and the little rivers keep it all nice and wet. Tyrone, my turn to be boss this month. Seems stupid to me. I don't want to be in charge. I'm just going to do whatever Jim tells me to. Doc J, I want to remind everyone to come by my tent every day for your radiation screening. Even if you don't think you've been exposed to radiation, the test takes only minutes. Take my word for it, you'd much rather be inconvenienced in the morning than come down with a case of radiation sickness. I'm more than happy to give a detailed account of that scenario to the next person who misses an appointment. Tyler, my name is Ty, and I'm a big dumbhead. Tyler, hey Rochelle, remind me what a big stupid head I am the next time you need me to repair you and View's distillers, okay? What gives, Edgar? Can't you put a password on this thing? Jim, been a good few months for us since the coming out. Going by the dosimeter tests, we're taking some exposure to radiation, but as long as Doc Johansson keeps folks on their meds, we don't seem to be having trouble with rad sickness. Irrigation and fertilization has been good, and though we lost the goats and chickens, the cows have done good. Those hardy beasts don't seem to mind this new world. Miles and Jackie are devoting some time to husbandry to keep the cows breeding and available. Edgar, I'm trying to fabricate a windmill for us. If anybody spots any long, flat sheets of metal, you let me know. I have most of the other parts I need, but I haven't found good metal for the blades yet. Jim, nobody ought concern themselves too much with Miguel's scouting report. While he did spot some folks out past the valley, they rode by and weren't like to have noticed him or us. Let's all just keep to the homestead for a few days and avoid using open fires for a few days, just to be safe. From these entries we learned that a group of people survived the Great War by heading underground. This location is sadly never mentioned. After a while they went a little stir crazy and were forced to resurface. The group then found this farmstead, where I think Miles may have already been since Rochelle mentions him having previous experience working on a farm. And this is where the two stories begin to intertwine. I believe that Miles is Bob Anderstein's son. Not the boy who was sick, but the sick boy's older brother. The farm has a swing set, which indicates a child living on the farm when the bombs first fell. I believe that the original inhabitants of the farm was the Andersteins, the two parents and the two sons. The father knew of the drainage chamber prior to the Great War and headed straight for it. Now the boy's injury, to me the factors suggest it was something physical. Inside the drainage chamber there is a crutch and a medical journal. I think the boy may have been injured on the way to the drainage chamber, perhaps breaking a leg on one of the slopes. His brother, Miles, and his father would have carried him inside and placed him on the bottom bunk since it was easier than lifting him up to the top. As you can see, there is a blood stain which could have been from a seriously messed up leg. I'm talking bone through skin here. The family tried their best to help the boy, even setting up a distress call on loop, but it was to no avail. The boy died from blood loss. This is where things get a little convoluted. I believe that Miles wanted to take his brother's body outside to the farm and bury him. When his parents refused to let that happen, he fell into a deep depression. I'm not sure if the terminal was Miles's escape from the chamber, but it ended up getting destroyed, perhaps in a heated argument. The parents did not starve as there is food, nor did they die of dehydration as there is water. It looks to me like a suicide. I can't help but feel that the position of the bodies is too peaceful, if that makes sense. It looks as if they are holding each other. Now the suicide could have been a family choice that Miles pretended to go along with to escape and finally take his brother's body with him. Or it could have been intentional to put his parents to rest, so to speak. One way or the other, the parents perished, and Miles left to return to the farm. After burying his brother, the others joined him and began their own little settlement on the hilltop. They reared chickens, goats, and cows, although the cows are the only animals that have survived and continued breeding into what we see today. Brahmin. We can actually see them downhill still grazing. They also planted something in the soil that helped the crops grow. I believe this could have been radioactive waste from the dumping site at the back of the farm. The doctor most likely knew about it, which explains why he was so adamant that everyone visit each morning to take their medication. We learn from the entries that someone called Miguel went scouting. Maybe it was to find more supplies, or perhaps it was to find the scrap metal Edgar needed to finish his windmill. While scouting, Miguel spotted people past the valley. The group don't seem to be interested in making contact and plan to avoid it at all costs. saying they won't have any fires for a few days, just in case somebody spots it. And that's it. The last entry implies that the people Miguel saw came for them. We don't know who they were. They could have been raiders, slavers, cannibals. There's no way of knowing for certain, but we can find the remains of someone inside the farm. Could be from the Hilltop settlers or one of the invaders. It really doesn't matter who. There is a small random chance that we can see the body of a raider floating in the radioactive water, but the timing and appearance of the body just doesn't make sense for what I believe, and is most likely just a raider from the Grizzly Diner. The only things left to mention are skill books, a guns and bullets in the outhouse, and a Dean's electronics atop a barrel by the radioactive waste. And there we have it, the Anderstein family and the mysterious disappearance of the Hilltop settlers. If you enjoyed the video, then consider leaving a comment, liking the video, sharing it with a friend, subscribing to see more, and enabling notifications to avoid missing any activity. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next adventure.